Hi, I'm Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Happy New Year's Eve to everybody who's joining me. I've got a bunch of things that I want to go over through this live stream. So I've got patterns that I want to talk about, just some popular ones, sort of like a year-end review. We can look through some yarns that were released this year. And then I did a really last-minute trip up to the Chicagoland area today, just up and back, to grab a whole bunch of primarily Lion brand yarns. And so I have a ton of those to show you guys. And then we've got time to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I've also got some stuff to show you from Christmas. I picked up, I received a couple of books, and I got a circular knitting machine. So I'm going to show those off. And then, whatever you guys want to talk about. So if you've got questions or things you want to talk about, throw those in the live chat. And we'll talk about those things too. We will probably not be live streaming until midnight anywhere in the US. So usually we end about 10 o'clock, and we'll probably still end about there. But we'll see how it goes. So happy New Year's Eve. And welcome to everyone who's joining me. Looks like a handful of people are in the chat saying hi and Happy New Year's. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I don't know, do you guys want to see yarn first, or do you want to talk about some year-end type of stuff first? Also, if you are if you're watching the live stream and you notice anything up with the audio, or if we're out of sync or something, let us know as quick as you can, and we'll try and get that fixed. We're trying something different to try and keep the audio in sync with the video tonight. So, we'll see how that goes. Let's see. I don't know where I want to start here. I guess we can start by unboxing some of the new yarns. All right. I have piles of yarn next to me here, so bear with me. I've got a couple more of these guys. All right. So this yarn that I've got in front of me here is a new one from Lion Brand. This is Winter Nights. Winter Nights is a really, really fuzzy yarn with like sequins mixed in. The sequins are relatively soft. They're not like stabbing, and if I like squish into the yarn, they don't seem to be really irritating. So I think you probably can get away with making a scarf or something like that out of this yarn. I don't know how those are showing up. They look kind of blown out on my screen, but they might be okay over there. So here I've got Empowerment, which is the green, and Whisperfection, which is the purple. So this comes in a few other colors, but these are the only two colors that they had at the store that I went to today. So, again, Lion Brand, Winter Nights, Empowerment and Whisperfection. Oh yeah, let's talk about this yarn real quick. It is a number 4 medium weight yarn or worsted weight yarn. It's 65% acrylic, 35% polyester. It comes in 100-gram balls. They're 186 yards. And like I said, it's a pretty halo-y, fuzzy yarn. Looks like the sequins are on a thread that's mixed in with the yarn. So I don't know how well that comes through, but it's pretty fuzzy. And there's sequins, I don't know, every couple inches there's a single sequin. So worked up, it'd be every few stitches there would be a sequin. So it'd look pretty cool. Couple more people joining, and Maggie May saying starting with yarn, and so that's where we started anyway. Oh, Joyce had a question. What are my current works in progress? We can get to those in just a little bit. I'm gonna do yarn, and then I'll come back around and I'll hit all of the things that I'm working on right now. I'm going to set these guys off to the side. If there's anything that you guys have questions about any of the yarns that I'm picking up as I'm going through them, throw those in the live chat. I can see those as we're going through. I can always pull stuff back out if we want to come back to it. All right. So next up is Lion Brand Retweed. And I've got some Lion Brand Re-Up in my bag. I'll pull that out in a few minutes. Retweed is a similar line from Lion Brand. It comes in a much larger ball. It is a number 4 weight or worsted weight yarn. They recommend an 8 knitting needle, which is 5mm, or an I9, which is a 5.5mm hook. It's a 100-gram ball, 202 yards. It's 40% wool, 40% polyester, 20% acrylic. And it is recycled tweed. They don't say what percentage is recycled in here. I had the same problem with Re-Up. Re-Up, they claimed was recycled, but they didn't say what percentage recycled. So it came in a lot of nice colors. It is not the nicest feeling yarn. It's pretty rough. Now, it is recycled content. It is 40% wool. It doesn't say if the wool is superwash or not. But I don't know. It's not great feeling. I only got this in a few colors. By contrast, so Re-Up kind of got a bad reputation for being rough, and I don't really get it. I actually really liked Re-Up, but Retweed is not great. I'm not sure. I'm gonna give it a try. I'm going to work it into something. I'm not sure what yet. And try washing it. If it softens with washing, then I think it'll be fine. It does say that it's machine washable and dryable, which sort of makes me think that the wool is probably superwash. Non-superwash wool is definitely not machine washable and dryable. So it'll felt really badly. So I'm thinking that the wool is superwash. It should be able to be softened. But as it sits, it's not really very nice feeling. Pretty scratchy and kind of staticky feeling. Like it's got a little bit, it almost feels like it's been starched. So, yeah, it looks really nice. And my husband's saying it looks like it's got good definition. Looks like it would be a decent yarn. It probably will work into something nice. It just doesn't feel great. Colors here are Plum Perfect, Sleet, and Graphite. So Plum Perfect is purple, Sleet is light gray, and Graphite is dark gray, verging on black. So that is Retweed from Lion Brand. Almost everything I show tonight is going to be from Lion Brand. There's a few that I grabbed that are not. Alright. What I have in front of me here is Lion Brand Shimmery. And I've got two of this color, so I'm just going to set that one off to the side. Try and get these in so that we can get them all on the other camera. Jake is asking if I've worked with the Winter Night and if I like it. I have not worked with it. All of these I picked up today. So, I haven't worked with anything. These are just sort of my initial impressions. I haven't really even felt them or messed with them much. So I went up, I bought them, and I came back, and you guys are seeing me basically unbox them and getting my initial impressions. So no, nothing that I'm pulling out right now I've worked with at all. With the exception when I get to the Re-Up. I've worked with that before. But the colors I have here are Milky Way, that is like a brown and cream, Blue Moon, which is blue and black, and Eclipse, which is sort of a gray and white and black. There is also another colorway that is white and black called Twilight, and I couldn't really tell the difference from the picture, but they didn't have it in the store when I was buying these. So I'm not sure what the difference between Eclipse and Twilight are as far as the colorways go. They both looked white and black to me. This yarn is labeled as a number 5 bulky weight yarn. They recommend a 9 or 5.5 millimeter knitting needle, or a K hook, which is a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. It's a 100-gram ball. It is 219 yards. I'm not totally sure why they're calling a 100-gram ball 219 yards a bulky weight. So 100 grams and 220 yards is definitely worsted weight. That's Cascade 220 is like the standard 100-gram ball worsted weight yarn. And I just keep that sort of in my head. So 220 yards, this is 219. Should be a worsted weight. However, I will say it does look bulky to the eye. It looks thicker than a worsted weight. So I'm not sure. Like, the math works out such that it should be a worsted weight, but the general look of the yarn, I would agree, it looks sort of bulky. Let's see. It is 99% acrylic, 1% other, and that other is really interesting because you guys have heard me talk about stellina in yarn. Stellina is a metallic fiber that they blend into yarn, and you can it's part of the yarn rather than wrapped around it. So normally when you get a sparkly yarn, it is wrapped in sparkle rather than mixed in. When you buy a sparkly yarn from an indie dyer, a lot of times they'll use stellina though instead. And so this is one of the first yarns I can think of from a big box store that has the blended in metallic fiber rather than the wrapped metallic fiber. I really, really prefer this kind. I wish that this had some natural fiber content, some wool or something, so that it would block really nicely. But this should be a really nice yarn for making like an accessory. So a shawl, a scarf, a cowl, something like that. A hat would probably look fine in it. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. So you should be able to see the sparkle there on the zoomed in look. But you can see there's individual fibers in here that you can pull out. And it's hard to see that fiber I've got in my hand here. Not sure if you can see that in my hand there. You can see if I wiggle it back and forth, it catches the light. But it's just single fibers, like, blended in with the other fiber. This is a really loose roving type of twist. So you can see that there's not much to this twist. But it is pretty robust. I can pull on it pretty hard. It's not coming apart. So, should be a really nice yarn for, like I said, a hat or a scarf or a shawl. Something like that will look really nice out of this yarn. But, yeah. So, this is Lion Brand Shimmery. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Shimmery. So, move this off to the side. Let's see. Stephanie's saying she loves the muted colors. I'm not sure if she meant on the retweed. Yeah, they're really nice colors. I wish it felt a little bit nicer. I'm hoping it softens up with a wash. I'll definitely make that part of the review. If I make something, even if I just make a square out of it, I'll definitely be looking to try and get it washed and softened a little bit. See if it becomes a little bit more usable. Jake asking if I can do a review on the Premier Retro Velvet. I have not come across that in a store yet, and I have not gone to Premier's website to order it. I have done a review on Velvet and Velux from Lion Brand and Bernat. And those should be very, very similar yarns to Premier Retro Velvet. Additionally, the yarn from, what was that, Premier, what is the name of that? the caked yarn. Parfait should be very, very similar to Retro Velvet as well. Saying it's at AC Moore. AC Moores are all closing, and additionally, they're an East Coast chain that I don't have access to. We are in Central Illinois, and AC Moore is I think their furthest east stores are in like Pennsylvania, or furthest west stores are in like Pennsylvania. Joyce is asking what was the cost. So on the, let's see, I want to say list price on the shimmery yarn is like $5.99. All of the Lion Brand yarns were 25% off today at Joann Fabric, which is where I bought them all. So this one was somewhere in the ballpark of like $4.25, something like that. Winter Nights, I think, was about the same price. It was $4 or $5 a ball with 25% off. And Retweed was actually a little bit more expensive, which is odd because Re-Up is cheap, like super cheap. It also is using recycled content, and it's not like the nicest feeling yarn, and they had to have known that. But I think it was $6.99 a ball, which is why I only ended up with 3 of them because I was not super impressed. Runaway Needle Red's confirming that Premier Retro Velvet yarn is exactly like Parfait. So if you catch my review on Premier Parfait layers, that should give you a pretty good idea of what Retro Velvet is like. At least as far as how it works up and how it feels. I did have some issues with Parfait layers on the way they join the colors together. But that won't be relevant to the Retro Velvet because they're solid colors. I should also mention that I bought all of these in Joann Fabric, but we actually had to drive all the way to the Chicago area to get them. There's like 3 stores in the whole Chicagoland area that get like every single new yarn. And then every other store between here and there, which it's about 2.5 hour drive. Every store between here and there got none of them. So if you're going to Joann, it's worth checking to see if you've got like a special Joann store near you that gets all of these. Otherwise, you're probably going to have to order them online. Like I said, Joann's got all of the Lion Brand yarns 25% off in their big yarn sale right now. Michelle's saying thanks for streaming, saving me from watching hockey. And that we're way better than hockey. So thank you for joining us. I'm glad everyone is joining. I wasn't really sure how many people were going to make it since it was New Year's Eve. I didn't know how many people had plans. But we just went ahead and streamed anyway. It's Tuesday night, which is their normal streaming night. And then it was New Year's Eve, and so it was kind of fun. And we decorated a little bit. Hopefully you can see the lights and stuff in the background. And had a little bit of fun doing a New Year's Eve stream. So thank you everyone for joining. If you're enjoying the stream and you feel like hitting like, that does help us out a little bit. YouTube tends to show it to more people then. So that does help us out if you hit that like button early on in the stream, then more people can join in because they advertise it a little bit like on people's home or front pages of YouTube and stuff. So again, if we're having any audio issues or anything, please let us know so that we can get those fixed for you too. You don't have to suffer through bad audio through this whole stream. Several more people joining us saying hello and Happy New Year. So hello, Happy New Year's Eve. Welcome to everybody. I'm going to keep going with more yarn. I think I got the most of this. So, this is Mandala Roving, and this ended up being one of the most interesting yarns. I didn't go expecting this to be a good yarn, but it's actually really, really pretty in person. It's got quite a bit of halo to it because it's got such a light twist to it, but it's really, I don't know, what's the word? Like glossy or shiny in some fashion. What would you say? It just looks really nice. I don't really know how to say it. I have no idea how it's going to work up. It does have quite a bit of halo. In this case, roving style yarn, they are meaning that it's really lightly twisted rather than it's really heavy weight. So you can sort of use those words to mean two different things. People will say roving yarn, and they might mean like really fat, almost like rope, but like barely twisted. Or in this case, they sort of just mean single ply with a really light twist. Um, but yeah, it has a really nice look to it. I don't really even know how to describe it, but hopefully you can see it on camera. It just looks really nice. If I tip this one, the colors are really vibrant. There's nothing like interfering with the solid colors. Joyce is suggesting sheen. Yeah, it's something about it just looks really high quality. We can talk statistics. It is 100% acrylic. Comes in 150-gram balls. They're 415 yards. It is labeled as a number 3 lightweight yarn, and this is why I was saying in this case roving, they mean single ply and very lightly twisted, rather than super heavy and lightly twisted. Because roving can sort of be used interchangeably for a number 7 yarn, which this is not. This is a lightweight yarn, or a DK weight. Let's see. They are recommending a US 5, which is a 3.75 millimeter knitting needle, or a H hook, which is a 5 millimeter knitting needle. It's a pretty big difference. So I'm pretty used to seeing like a half a millimeter difference between knitting needle and crochet hook, but they're actually going to 1.25 millimeter bigger for a crochet hook. 3.75 millimeter knitting needle seems really tiny for this yarn. All right, the colors I've got here are Granite, Almanac, Cinnabar, and Hayloft. And really, Almanac is just stunning to look at. It's black on the outside, which is going to make for a pretty difficult yarn, to see. It's got a really pretty dark blue. If I can pick out an outside or a center here. I just want to pull it to see how strong it is. Ruining this ball here. So one of the biggest problems with roving style yarns is that they don't have any strength usually. And so my husband sort of ran into this problem. Yeah, I can feel. If you did something like a magic circle, and had to pull it super tight, you can separate this pretty easily here. So, again, I'll just pull this. It has some strength to it, certainly, but it does just pop apart if you really yank on it. So, I mentioned in the live stream that I got a circular knitting machine, and my husband's been messing with it and making hats and stuff. But he ran into this same problem with a roving style yarn. He pulled an end really tight, and the yarn just separated. And if you don't have a plied yarn, you've only got the one ply to work with. That can happen. So just be aware of that. If you are a relatively new to yarn, be very careful with roving or single ply style yarns, because you can pull them and separate them, and you won't have enough strength to get things to tighten down. So this might be better used for a scarf or something like that, rather than a hat where you have a magic circle and you need to like crank on it and tighten it up. Multi-Proud Mother said that the colors are really deep. Welcome. Thanks for everybody commenting. A lot more people joining us and saying Happy New Year. Welcome to everybody who's in there. All right. That's off my screen. Oh, okay. No, I see it now. Runaway Needle Red saying that it's like landscape yarn. It's very similar construction. Landscape, and actually it's very similar to, what is that yarn? Red Heart Boutique. Why can't I think of the name of it? Landscape is very similar. It's really butterfly, dragonfly. What is the name of that yarn? Boutique. I can't think of what it's called. Somebody'll come up with it in a second. It's the red heart yarn that either everyone loves or everyone hates. It's absolutely gorgeous, but it's a nightmare to work with. I can see this yarn being very similar. Unforgettable. It's very similar to Unforgettable and Landscape. So very intense colors, very pretty. Probably is going to look terrible once it, like, if you try to block it. Yeah, Runaway Needle Red said Unforgettable. Because it's 100% acrylic and it has, like, no twist to it, that combination tends to be really, really rough to block. And it gets kind of crunchy. And it has a tendency to pill. But in the ball right now, it looks gorgeous, and I can't say it's going to have those. Yeah, Dawn's pointing out the fact that I forgot what Unforgettable is. Yeah, Unforgettable is one of those yarns that it's unforgettable to once you work with it, because it is rough. Because it's weak and because it's got a ton of halo and it, like, knots together and you can't pull it back out. It's a mess. But yeah. So it's I don't know if this is going to be the same, but we'll see. It's currently very, very pretty and it looks really nice in the ball. We'll see what happens when I actually try to work with it. New Day Crochet says, just wanted to say hi and Happy New Year. Have to charge my phone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you can charge and watch at the same time. A handful of people just chatting and laughing at my not remembering Unforgettable. I think I'm caught up with colors there, or with comments there, more or less. It's really nice when there's a lot of chat because it keeps things going and I've got stuff. But if I get behind in chat, then they scroll off. I only have about 8 lines or so that I can see because it's large enough that I can read it across the room. So, let's see. Next thing I've got here is going to look very blown out on screen, so bear with me because I bought white yarn. And it's on a white background with a ton of lights, so bear with us here. So this is Lion Brand Basic Stitch. This is the premium yarn, and this one over here is the anti-pilling. So it comes in 2 different lines. They're both called Basic Stitch. And I don't believe that they're interchangeable. So let's check stats on them. Basic Stitch Premium is 100% premium acrylic, is what it says. 100 grams, 219 yards, which is, if you'll remember, exactly the same fiber content, weight, and yardage as the last one. Or as the shimmery, but this is a number 4 yarn. This is a they recommend a US 8, which is a 5mm knitting needle, or a J hook, which is a 6mm knitting needle. And so this, like I said, this is Basic Stitch Premium. And then if we switch over to Basic Stitch Anti-Pilling, comes in 85-gram balls, 157 yards. I'd have to do the math to see if they're exactly the same size. The anti-pilling is self-explanatory. It's supposed to be anti-pilling, probably to compete with, like, Premier. And then, let's see. Number 4, they also recommend a 5 millimeter. Sorry, I'm trying to compare these back and forth. They recommend the same size knitting needle, 5 millimeter, but they recommend a 5 millimeter crochet hook, which is an H hook, and they were recommending a 6 millimeter over here. So these are slightly different in some fashion. So they're the same line, but not interchangeable. They did have slightly different different colors available, but very similar. So there was like a bright purple available in this, and there was a bright purple available in this, but they were just a little bit different. So be aware of that if you're in the store and like looking at these. They're all stocked like right next to each other. And so if you're trying to buy for one project, they're going to be slightly different. They also feel a little bit different. This white yarn is, it feels really, really like clean and crisp, but it's not like plush. The anti-pilling is super soft and squishy and feels more like Caron Simply Soft or Premier DK Colors, where this yarn over here feels just more like a nice acrylic, but isn't as smooth and soft and stuff like that. That makes sense. Just trying to catch up through. Runaway Needle Red saying that the difficult yarns seem to come in pretty colors because the results make them worth the effort. Yeah, the result. Yeah, I think she's talking mostly about the Mandala roving. And yeah, they really make you work for the beautiful end result there. They are, the roving yarns tend to be difficult, but we'll see. I'm holding out hope that one's better, but I guess I'm holding out hope, but I'm not holding my breath. All right, so tossing all these guys aside. I did pick up one ball of Caron Simply Soft. It's obviously not a new yarn, but it was a color that I hadn't seen, and it was kind of a fun kid's color. I haven't made doll clothes in a while, and I've been thinking that I'd like to do that again. So, one of the yarn books I'll show you in a little bit that I got for Christmas has, it's got a whole, it's a Stitch dictionary, but it shows you how to do increases in the center and on the edges. It's one thing that I've always sort of struggled with, is figuring out how to increase like in the middle. So if you want to make a shawl and you want it to start flaring out, where do you put those increases and how do you add them such that the stitches still lay nicely? So that that is a really cool feature of that book. So I'm hoping that I can use that book in conjunction with some like just regular acrylics and maybe work on some doll clothes, because I just have fun doing that. So this was just a fun sort of like cotton candy color. It is actually called Times Square, which is appropriate for tonight. Though I have no idea why it's called Times Square. Nothing about it reminds me anything of New York. Let's see. It's a number 4 medium weight yarn, which is kind of a lie. Caron Simply Soft is really closer to DK. They recommend a 5mm knitting needle or a 5mm crochet hook. These stripe yarns are always smaller balls than the other Caron Simply Soft. This is a 141 gram ball. And for that you get 235 yards. And let's see. That's about all I've got to say. It's 100% acrylic. It's Caron Simply Soft. You guys have probably used it. Most people have come across it. It comes in a million colors. I think Simply Soft looks really nice, feels nice to work up, but it pills terrible, which makes it great for doll clothes because dolls don't wear clothes and get them roughed up. It makes it a little bit terrible for kids' clothes because they do rough their clothes up. So it looks really nice for like a day. I made leg warmers for a couple of little girls when they were I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, and they looked nice for one day, and then they were just totally pilled, like end to end, just because they ran around and roughed them all up, and they looked really bad by the end of the day. So, okay. So I'll just stop for a second real quick and say welcome to everybody. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, thanks for joining, and if you're interested, you can subscribe by hitting the subscribe button, and then if you want notifications about when we live stream, which is normally on Tuesday nights at about 8 o'clock Central Time, but if you'd like notifications, you can hit the little bell and change the drop-down menu from personalized to all. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram at Experiments in Crafting. I try and post when we're live streaming or when we've posted a new video on there. You are also free to message me after the stream or just anytime you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer those. I've been a little bit slow to respond. I've been super busy, but I think I'm caught up on comments as of like a few days ago, and replying to people's messages. So hopefully anybody who's joining us who's new will find that helpful. Also, welcome. Thanks for joining us on New Year's Eve. Happy New Year. I'm going to try and catch some comments before they roll off my screen here. Runaway Needle Red. Okay. New Day Crochet. Okay, so New Day Crochet is saying that they've used the Mandala roving and it's hard to frog and it's not as nice as Unforgettable. I'm not surprised by that. It looks like it might be hard to frog, so I'll choose a pattern that's easy to work with. I probably will do some sort of corner to corner because that looks nice with color change yarns. Runaway Needle Red said she's not a fan of Simply Soft because of the pilling. Yeah, I've had the same problem, but it works great for doll clothes because you can get it in 50 million colors and it doesn't matter if it pills because it's for dolls. And as long as it's not beat up too hard, it works just fine. Bridget said she's a beginner crocheter. Recently made a basket weave scarf using 2 strands of Lion Brand Thick and Quick. Turned out like a beast and is stiff-ish. Did I use too thick of yarn? So Thick and Quick held 2 strands together. In order for it to be anything but stiff, you probably would have needed like a 25 millimeter crochet hook. So you can go as thick as you want, but to get drape, you need to leave some room for the yarn to like move and wiggle about. And the only way to do that if you're holding 2 together with a yarn that heavy is to use just a gigantic hook. So this scarf here is Thick and Quick. It's Mandala Thick and Quick, actually. And it, you can see, it stands up on its own. It has no drape to it. And I've sort of put off reviewing this yarn because I was not super happy with the way that it came out. And it's not really the yarn's fault. It was just my fault. I didn't use a big enough hook, and it's just, so if you use 2 of these held together, so like I said, unless you used like a 25 millimeter crochet hook, it probably is this stiff, and that's just because the yarn is so big. When you get to thicker yarns, they're not able to bend as tightly, or bend as much as you want. So it's harder to get drape out of yarn that big. I would say next time you work with, I mean, if it's too stiff, there's not a whole lot you can do. You could try and block it and stretch it a little bit. That might give you a little bit of drape back. I have several live streams where I've blocked acrylic. You can block acrylic. People will tell you can't. It doesn't work like blocking wool, but it does help. So blocking means wetting the yarn and stretching it. And so when you stretch it, you sort of thin, like you add a little bit more space and you sort of stretch the yarn a little bit. And so that might help a little bit and get a little bit more drape out of it. So you can see even where I've pulled this, it's a little bit more drapey now than this side. So if you picture wetting this and then pinning it while wet and leaving it to dry. So that's probably your best bet at this point if you don't want to rip the whole thing out. I would use only a single strand of Thick and Quick next time, and use a larger hook if you want a little bit more drape to your project. Thick and Quick by itself is a pretty decent yarn. It's just, it takes some working with if you want it to have any drape to it. By comparison here, real quick, I have this scarf, which is a heavy scarf, and you can see it's got all kinds of drape to it, but there are holes in the fabric where it's able to flex around. So this is just a double crochet pattern. It's not a very nice scarf. It's probably one of the first things I made, but it does have some drape to it because it's got room to move. A basket weave is a really, really tight stitch, and then using two heavy yarns held together will just make a really, really rigid fabric. So hopefully blocking will help a little bit, but yeah, I think holding two together and doing basket weave probably would have been better for something that you wanted to have structure, like a basket. So like if you wanted to make like a bowl or something like that would have been the right stitch to choose there. Let's see. Runaway Needle Red says that Caron's Simply Soft Party Yarn holds up a little bit better than the regular Simply Soft. I agree there. The Simply Soft Party, I don't know if it's just a slightly different yarn base or if it's just the, like, it has that extra layer of, like, metallic around the outside. Maybe that's just helping a little bit, in some way. So, let's see. Anish Norge says, got an email from Lion Brand, sale 2 skeins of London K yarn for $1. I don't know that yarn offhand. Lion Brand just releases so much yarn at a time. It's really hard to keep on top of what they're releasing. So, I'm not even through what I bought today, and I'll keep going on those in just a second. But yeah, they just release yarn so fast, but that's a great deal. So anybody looking for a good deal, sounds like Lion Brand is running a sale. And then additionally, Joann Fabric's got yarn on sale as well. My husband said they're probably releasing new yarn as we stream. I wouldn't be surprised. Like they just keep cranking out yarn. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Bridget saying thank you. Wasn't sure. Didn't know anyone personally that crochets to ask. This is definitely the place to ask. So thanks for asking questions. This is what's fun for me, is to get to talk with crocheters and help them out. If you catch us at a live stream, that's great. If not, you can always message me on Facebook or Instagram at Experiments in Crafting. I'm working on getting, I say this every stream, but I am working on getting the like group portion of the Facebook page. I'm just trying to figure out what exactly I want to do there. So there can be a little bit more community around the Experiments in Crafting channel. Where people can chat and share projects and offer advice and ask for help and all sorts of things. So that's the goal. But in the meantime, please feel free to direct message me. on either Facebook or Instagram, or comment on a video, or whatever you want to do. I'm happy to help new crocheters figure things out. New Day Crochet Satan has to go. Phone about to die. Thanks for joining us. Happy New Year. Thanks for watching. What am I missing? Oh, yeah. Multi-Paired Mother said she wrestles with the increase issue and is excited to hear more about the book I was talking about. I can pull those out. I know we're doing yarn, but I'll stop for a second on yarn and I'll pull those out. So, this book I picked up, you'll notice, is not in English on the cover. This is a Japanese crochet motif book. It's got a whole bunch of little motif style patterns in here. Let me tip it so that it trying to deal with the glare on the pages. Hang on a second. Not gonna happen. What if I tip all the way? All right, there we go. So you can see it's a picture and then a chart down here on the bottom. There's some Japanese mixed in here. I've had my husband translate before a couple of the pages in a different book, and the information was not relevant. It just wasn't important to figuring out what was going on. So, the charts are the important part of this book. And these are all motif style, like work as you go, so that you work the first one, and then there's a way to move on to the next one, and then to the next one, and make a whole, large thing. So you can make like table runners or bedspreads, or depending on how big you go, placemats, whatever you want out of. For example, here's a dress made out of all motifs. So this was one that I picked up. I wanted for a while. You guys will maybe remember that earlier this year we had a flood, and I did have a couple of Japanese stitch dictionaries that both got ruined in the flooding. And I'm going to get those on order and replaced because I actually really liked working with those. All right, so this one we should be able to show a little bit better because it doesn't have shiny pages, I don't think. Oh, no, it does have shiny pages. All right. Yeah. So you'll notice here, this is just a random stitch that I've opened up to. We're going to switch cameras so you can see a little bit better. We might have to turn a light off or something. But you'll see here, so this is linked double treble. Which is double triple crochet, or actually, yeah, double triple. So what you see here is that on this side that there's two pieces, like a piece that has some straight, just even rows, and then they show some increases, and then they show some decreases, and then there's a piece over here with increases in the center. And you can see it's starting to flare out. So this is the thing that I was talking about. And then there's charts over here that show how to add those increases in, and then also written text on how to do those increases. So if you don't read charts, there's text as well. But this is what I found to be really, really interesting and important, is it shows the increases and decreases on every stitch, but it also shows how to increase in the center of a project. So if you want to design a pair of fingerless gloves, you're going to have to make a cuff, and then you're going to have to start increasing, usually along the thumb, and figure out how to put extra stitches in here to shape it. And I just really have never... I get it when I work patterns up, but I've never really understood how to take, okay, here's a stitch dictionary, I like this stitch, how am I going to add more of it? And so on something as simple as a linked treble crochet, like, okay, that's no big deal, but if you get into some of these more complicated patterns, for example, here's a bobble stitch. They show how to just, this one doesn't have down the center how to add in stitches, but it does show how to increase on the edge. And you could see how this easily could become a fingerless glove. Like, it's almost hand shaped already. Like, you could just make two of these and stitch them together and it's a fingerless glove. But you can see they show how to start adding stitches along this edge here, and then they add another bobble in on the edge, do another row with the additional bobble, and then they start decreasing and taking that bobble away. And so it really is interesting because it shows how to add those increases and decreases into a project. So I came across this book and I really liked it, and so I've been pretty excited. It is Crochet Every Way Stitch Dictionary by Dora Ornstein. So, of the stitch dictionaries that I've seen, this is probably the most useful to me because I really want to make some things that I can show you guys how to. My goal with this channel was not necessarily just to review yarn. Like, that's fun, but my goal was to actually teach some crochet. And the problem with teaching crochet is if you don't own the patterns, you can't make videos about them. So I can't just take any random person's pattern and make a video for it. That's not how things work. Yeah. But I struggle with figuring out how to turn, like, I can make something simple, a scarf, a cowl, things like that, but they get boring quickly. Blankets are just flat squares, like, very easy things I can obviously figure out. But making things like a shawl with nice shaping has just never been in my wheelhouse. And so this, I'm really looking forward to figuring out how to add those increases and have, a nice flair to a shawl or something like that. And I think this will go a long way to helping me take that next step in pattern designing. So there's a lot of cool stitches in here, but I think the important thing is the shaping and teaching you how to do that is really important. So, I'm gonna flip back to more yarn. All right. I thought this was Red Heart, but this is another Lion Brand yarn. This is Lion Brand Off the Hook Magic. So Off the Hook Magic. This is the heart. I'm gonna say colorway, but it's not really a colorway. It's really a pattern. So you'll see here there's a stitch that's totally the wrong color. This is, I believe, your starting stitch. I haven't actually confirmed that, but I'm guessing that's what they've got going on here. This is a scrap piece that they attached so you know where to start this ball. And I don't know if you can see the picture here shows a heart, like a light pink heart in a dark pink sort of background. This ball makes one square exactly like this. So if you follow the pattern, you'll get one square. I don't even know the size of the square offhand. That is a pink thing with a light pink heart. You can buy multiple of these and seam them all together so that you get a blanket of hearts, or they have a smiley face emoji, a heart, a star. The star is dark blue, like a dark baby blue with a light baby blue star, or maybe white. I don't remember. The heart was pink on pink. The smiley face was a really bright blue with a yellow emoji smiley face and a peace sign. It was, I think, a rainbow background with a dark purple peace sign. So I think it was 4 options in the magic yarn. So this is that loop style yarn that's been super popular this year, where you lay out a certain number and then you loop the next row through the first row. It's a it's sort of knitting, but it's not really knitting because it doesn't require needles. You lay out a row and loop it all through, and then you lay out your next row and loop it all through. It's very, very kid friendly. And these are obviously colors and patterns targeted towards like tweens. With the peace sign and the they were calling it emoji. It's a smiley face. I think it's a winky smiley face or something. But and then a heart and a star. So, clearly targeted towards like a 10 to 14-year-old girl. And whoever else wants to do it, but like that's obviously the target. Let's see. Michelle's saying, I thought about a series on yarn weight versus stitch definition. Example, Line Brand has many weights for woolies. Used a 6 weight when I should have been using a 5. That's an interesting one. I know we've done something on yarn weight. We did like a yarn 101 on yarn weights. But we didn't really talk much about stitch definition, I don't think, in that video. But I did go through like the different weights and what they're good for. I'm trying to remember. It's been a while since we did that video, but it is up on the channel about yarn weights for sure. Really quick on this yarn, they've got this listed as a number 7 jumbo yarn. What's really interesting is that it doesn't have I don't know if you can get this in the picture, but it doesn't have a crochet hook or knitting needle recommendation. It just has a hand. And then there's a gauge. So it's showing 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter is 5 rows or 6 stitches. It's a 4 inch by 4 inch square. But it just shows a hand. Where normally it shows like this. There's a you can see the crochet hook and the knitting needles there. In this case, it's just a hand. So I just thought that was kind of funny. This is a 95 gram ball, which is 3.3 ounces, and you get enough to make 1 square. So it doesn't really matter what the yardage is as long as it's the right thing to make the square. I'm sure this took them a lot of effort to figure this out because they have to do the color changes in a really precise way in order to get this pattern to work every time. Which from like a manufacturing standpoint seems like a real pain in the butt. Because they have to like switch back and forth after a precise number of loops. So, Bridget's saying it's game time with the family, so she's going. Just Bridget's saying goodbye for the evening and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us. I hope to see you again next week. We should be live streaming again on Tuesday, so Happy New Year. And then Michelle's saying thinking of a series, working up samples, showing how they look. Things get distorted. And my husband suggested basically the same thing. So yeah. That's something we can look into doing. Just repeating the whole thing with different weights of yarn. So, that sounds like a good idea. We can do something like that. It's something that I don't think a lot of people realize with really intricate patterns that you lose that. I'll see a lot of times, you'll see this if you go on Ravelry and look at the project pages where a designer will do a pattern in like a indie dyed fingering weight yarn. So like a number 1 weight yarn. And it's got this intricate, beautiful pattern. And then somebody will do it in like a bulky weight yarn that's solid color. And that's fine if that's what they have. But you have to know that it's not going to look the same. And I don't know that everyone does know that, like, intrinsically. But I'll see people complain that the pattern didn't turn out as expected when they use, like, a wildly different yarn. Like, the pattern will be designed in a fingering weight 100% wool, indie dyed, variegated yarn, and they'll do it in like a number 5 bulky, solid, 100% acrylic. And it's like those are never going to look the same. And it's fine if you want to work the pattern, and that's fine if that's the yarn that you have on hand, but yeah, I think it's important that people do understand that those are never going to look the same no matter what you do. So yeah, that's a good suggestion, just to try and drive that point home, that if you're going to substitute yarn, you need to understand how to substitute and what way makes sense and what yarns you can swap in and out. I talk about that a lot when I'm talking about reviews and like suggesting other things. And recently when we've been doing yarn reviews, I've been talking about yarns that you could substitute in if you wanted to spend more or less, or ones that I think are similar, or things like that. So we've been trying to do that a little bit more, but yeah, just doing a video about how yarns are able to be swapped, I think is a good idea. So, let's see, what else did we grab? We got Lion Brand Cobblestone here. I'm just gonna pick this whole basket up. I can't reach the floor. I think I brought pretty much every color of cobblestone. My husband would have to check and see what colors are even available, but the one that I know that I didn't buy was the blue. I don't remember what it was called, but I didn't like it, so I left it. Alright, so this is Lion Brand Cobblestone. It is 100% acrylic, which is a little bit unfortunate because it looks just like Tweedledee, which is, I think, like 50 or 60% cotton. I always like to have a little bit of natural fiber if you can. It just, well, one, I like to have natural fiber, but two, it's nice for blocking. Natural fibers take a block a lot nicer than acrylic does, but it is what it is, and it's a pretty nice feeling yarn. It looks pretty cool. It is a number 4 weight, which is a worsted or medium weight yarn. 100 grams, 219 yards. Again, with the 100 grams, 219 yards, 100% acrylic, they're calling a number 4 weight. But on Shimmery, exact same stats came out. They claimed they're a number 5. Let's see. They recommend a US 8 knitting needle, which is 5 millimeters, or an eye hook, which is 5.5 millimeters. And I've got a number of different colors. I really like the way this looked. This is Current, Wood Violet, Sphinx, which is like a light gray, Monarch, Fallen Rock, which is more of a taupe and white rather than gray. It might not come through real clear. Anchor, and Jasper. A lot of times Lion Brand yarns have sort of a theme. These don't seem to. I don't know how Current, Wood Violet, Fallen Rock, Sphinx, Monarch, Jasper, and Anchor go together in any fashion. There's usually some sort of obvious pattern. They're naming them after mythical creatures or something like that, but I don't relate any of those to Cobblestone. Any idea how many colors that this comes in? Like I said, it comes in at least one more. It comes in 12. So I've got 7 of the 12 here. I don't even know what colors I could be missing. A yellow, maybe? A black?
Fallen Rock, Current, Wood Violet, Monarch, Moss Tone, Jasper, Sphinx, Slate, Ribbon, Anchor, Licorice, and Misty Rose.
Okay. So it sounds like the Misty Rose is probably a pink. I don't remember what else you said. Slate sounds like we're missing. There's a couple we're missing. You can look them up online. We'll do a review of this at some point. But they had one that was blue. So you can see all of these are a color with basically like a white mixed in. They had a blue that was blue with light blue, and it just looked really dumb when I held it with all of the other colors. Um, so the more I'm looking at this Jasper actually looks green and gray, rather than green and white, but it still looks nice with like all of the colors sitting here. Um, the other blue, I don't know what it was called, but it just didn't look great with the rest of these colors. It looked fine on its own, but like with the rest in the cart, it looked really dumb. Like, I don't know. Uh, it didn't make the cut today. So, this is Cobblestone. It's a relatively new yarn from Lion Brand. I'm not sure how new. Every once in a while, I will go on to Joann Fabric's website and just sort by new products. And occasionally, you'll go on there, and there'll just be like 15 new yarns from Lion Brand. So, today was one of those days, and it was a live stream day. And actually, my husband sent them to me late last night, and so I woke him up early this morning and said, "Let's go get them so that we've got them for the live stream." So we did that. Let's see. I'll get the re-up out. Okay. Alright, so Re-Up is not a new yarn, but they did release it in some new, like, variegated colorways, which honestly are not pretty. I have no nice way of saying that, I really don't. This one's probably the nicest. This is Azul. It's got, like, a aqua, a green, sort of a gray blue, and a cream in it. I grabbed a couple of solid colors. These are ones that I used. So here's the thing. I'm going to back up a second. Re-Up kind of has a bad reputation. I'm not really sure why. I don't think it's any worse than any other dishcloth cotton. It's not nice cotton. But dishcloth cotton sort of isn't. It's kind of rough. It's kind of blah colors.
Actually, think it's nice for dishcloth cotton.
Yeah, my husband said he thinks it's nice looking for dishcloth cotton. But all of that being said, it still looks nice worked up. Several people said that it wasn't very soft. And we look at reviews and whatnot, and I don't know. I don't really think any dishcloth cotton is all that soft, but I found it nice enough to work with. I didn't think it was any splittier than any other dishcloth cotton that I've worked with. So I'm not really sure why it's got such a bad reputation, but I really don't care for Lion Brand, Red Heart Smoothie, Softy Cotton Smoothie. I don't remember what it's called. Huh?
The one that's like a big rope.
Oh, that was Side Dish. Lion Brand Side Dish was terrible. He was asking me what yarn I really didn't like. Lion Brand Side Dish was a 6-weight cotton dishcloth yarn. It was too heavy to make dishcloths out of. It was horrendously splitty. But anyway, Re-Up is some percentage recycled content. They don't actually clarify. It's 85% cotton, 15% polyester. If you do their math, it's 100% of the cotton in the, so of the 85% cotton, 15%, or I'm sorry, of the 85% cotton, 85, like all 85% of it, 100% of it is recycled if you do the math that's on their label. So it says, it's got something that says, it says, save the planet stitch by stitch, recycled cotton saves 5,900 cups of water per ball. And then if you go on their website, it tells you how many cups of water, I don't know why cups of water, it's a terrible unit, it takes to produce cotton. and how if you use this ball, you save that many. So if you do the math, it basically is telling you that all of the cotton in the ball is recycled content. I work with recycled cotton as part of my job, and I'm hesitant to believe that it's 100% of the 85% recycled cotton. I'd be happy to be proven wrong, but it's not said explicitly anywhere on there that it's all recycled cotton. So I'll just leave that as it is. But I don't know. It's cheap. I think it's generally no more than $2 a ball. I think I picked these up for $1.49 today. I've gotten them as cheap as $1 a ball. At Michael's, they were buy one get one free at $2 a ball one day. So, you guys can pull up the pictures on my Instagram, or maybe my husband will throw them on the live stream. But I thought the present that I made out of Re-Up looked really nice. I made 3 little dishcloths and I threw them in as part of a wedding shower gift, and I thought they looked really cute. I haven't asked the bride how it turned out. But yeah. So I don't know. I thought they looked nice. I'm kind of a fan of Re-Up. My husband's a big fan of Re-Up. He thought it looked nice. I picked up the variegated colorways, which are relatively new. I'm not a huge fan. I'm hoping they work up better than they look in the ball, but a lot of the Re-Up colors are actually pretty vibrant for cotton, especially, well, probably because they've got 15% polyester and they can get the colors a little brighter. But they've got some really beautiful reds. The black is pretty nice. This aqua color is pretty nice. Even the orange is pretty bright. It's not super bright, but these variegated colorways are just really blah and really strange color choices together. Like, I don't know what is going on here. Why they called this one cotton candy, and then they mixed in this, like, really blah brown. I don't know. Can you get in a little closer on that? Like, it's just a really sad looking colorway. Like, it wants to be bright and cheery, and they just mix this really sad dirt color in with it. So, there, you can see a little bit closer there. But, like, there's sort of a brighter blue and a bright pink, and then just meh. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't want cotton candy this color. And then this one is a different color, but is really similar, called Confetti. I don't know. I feel like they could have done better on mixing some of these colors. Like, if they'd replaced the white in this with the green or like this teal color, might have been like peppier. This one's, I don't know, maybe a little bit better. The orange is kind of sad, but Dawn says maybe somebody dropped the cotton candy on the ground. Yeah, I don't know. It's unfortunate because the Re-Up colors are actually really quite pretty for dishcloth cotton. And I've got a box of them. I should have pulled them out, but they're relatively bright. And these variegated colors are kind of sad, but all of that being said, I've actually been relatively happy with Re-Up. So, take that for what you will. I think it's worth the $1.49 to try a ball and see if you like it. One thing to note, the variegated colors are smaller balls. So if you're following a pattern, you might need to check your weight on them. My husband's trying to get the picture of the dishcloths that I made onto the stream. It's fighting him because Instagram doesn't work well for Instagram is designed to be a mobile app, and it really, really hates being run on a desktop. So, on the variegated colors, it's a number 4 weight yarn. They come in 60 gram balls, 98 yards. They recommend a 4.5 millimeter knitting needle, which is a US 7, or an eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. And again, 85% cotton, 15% polyester. Some percentage of that cotton is recycled. On the solid re-up, the only difference is that the solid comes in 70 gram balls, which gets you 114 yards. Same hook recommendations, same size, same fiber blend. Really quick, I've got confetti, cotton candy, azul, saffron, ash, and bubblegum are the colors here. And again, I just bought these solid ones to replace the ones that I used for the gift that I made, because I actually really like these colors. I've got gray, ecru, and aqua. So, I'm gonna clear these guys off. I have the giantest pile of yarn growing on my side here. Oh, so we got the picture up. It's a combined picture of a bunch of different shots. On Instagram, you can flip through and see like the zoomed in versions of each of those pictures. But it probably was not working well. But you can see, I made 3 different, there's the link to Instagram. I made 3 different washcloths, folded them all the same. I used 3 different stitch patterns, and then folded them all into a nice square, tied them with a bow, and put them in with the gift. So, I think they turned out really nice. They look really pretty. They look a little bit rustic, I guess. But the maybe that's just how handmade dishcloths look, but it might just be a sort of a quality of re-up as well. They have sort of a heathered look to them. So I don't know. I thought they turned out nicely. There are a lot of reviews that are not a fan of re-up, but I am. So for what it's worth. All right. Next yarn is again Lion brand Mani-Pedi. Mani-Pedi is a sock weight yarn. It's a number 1 super fine. So sock weight or fingering weight. It comes in 50 gram balls, 219 yards. It is 75% superwash wool, 25% polyamide. Polyamide, I think, is nylon. If I remember correctly. They recommend a 2.25 millimeter knitting needle, which is a US 1, or a D hook, which is a 3.25 millimeter. I generally crochet with an E hook for fingering weight yarns. These do have a little bit of color change action going on here in the center. So you can see the outside is pretty purple and blue. But then it fades into sort of this like Northern Lights look. Kind of a green and blue. And then it looks like it goes back to purple and blue. So there is some striping. It does appear based on the little drawings that it's some sort of self-striping yarn. This color is called Wristers. This one's called Boots. This one's called Mittens. So there's the Lion brand sort of theme. The name of the yarn is Mani-Pedi, and they're all hand and feet items. So that's more traditional for Lion brand. This one looks very similar all the way through. It looks like it's gonna stripe in sections of dark green, light green, purple, and bright blue. This one has some dark and bright blue mixed in the center here. So looks like there's some more stripes in there. But yeah, this is interesting because, well, number 1, it's 100 or it's 75% superwash wool. So if you're looking for a really cheap option to do 100 gram fingering weight shawl. Here's a big box store 75% wool option. These were like $4.99 a ball, I think, which made them, I don't know, what does that make them? 4.25, I think, with the 25% off, something like that, or $3.75. I don't remember. I can't do math right now. Apparently, my brain has quit for tonight. Should have been $1.25 off of whatever I just said. So yeah, $3.75. So yeah, they're a good deal for fingering weight yarn. It is not the softest wool I've ever felt. Anna Schnorch says she's knit daughter's socks with the Mani-Pedi, turned out nice, was able to get a shorty pair with one skein. So that's good to know. You can get a pair of short socks knit out of one ball. Again, this is only 50 grams, so if you got a second ball, you could probably get tall socks out of them. Been some conversation a little higher. I think that it was discussion that you took care of. So, talking about how to sort by newest on Joanne's website. So, all right. So that's Mani-Pedi. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't feel amazing, but it is wool and it's probably softenable. Like, because it's natural fiber, you should be able to put a little bit of fabric softener, wash them. And again, because it's wool, it will take a block. So if you're doing an open lacy shawl, something like that, it looks like it'd probably have pretty nice stitch definition just because it looks like a nice, tight, clean yarn. It's got some heathering and like it has kind of a kettle dyed look to it. It doesn't look, you can see like in the purple and blue section here there's some like white mixed in, so it's not going to look necessarily hand dyed, but it does look it doesn't look like acrylic. Like it looks pretty nice mixed in there. And I think would probably be an okay drop-in replacement for many striping shawls or scarves. And again, I'm sure it's perfectly fine for socks or fingerless gloves, which is the intended use. You should be able to get one pair of socks or one pair of fingerless gloves out of one ball. And they should be nicely striped. They might not match perfectly, but that's sort of a risk that you take working with self-striping yarn. A lot of times the stripes don't match perfectly. You can often get them much closer if you start on the same color. I don't know if this yarn stripes in order or if it stripes in sort of a mirrored fashion. So I don't know if it's a 1 2 3 1 2 3 stripe or if it's a 1 2 3 2 1 stripe. That'll make it more or less difficult depending on which kind to replicate. So if it's a mirrored, you have to make sure you're on the right side of the mirror to, like, if it's mirrored and it's 1 2 3 2 1, you have to make sure that if you're on color 2 that it's the right side of the mirroring, whether it's going to go to color 1 or color 3 as you progress. So hopefully that makes sense. But if you're trying to match socks or fingerless gloves, just keep that in mind. But otherwise, you should be able to do a project pretty easily. Like I said, pair of fingerless gloves or a pair of shorty socks with one ball. All right. I am to the last Lion Brand new yarn. All right, it's a doozy. This is Mandala Fluffy, and good God, I'm sure it's terrible to work with. It's really cool looking in person. It's crazy fluffy, and it has these really, really intense, beautiful colors. But it looks like a nightmare to work with. It's so fuzzy. I'll pull some of it out of the ball here so that you can see what it looks like. We'll switch camera angles, but it's gonna be a nightmare to work with. Um, you can see it's barely like there is yarn sort of in the center, but it is like all kinds of fuzzed up and crazy, just nonsense. But like I said, it's really, really pretty. I went into the store thinking that I was not even gonna buy this. Um, and then ended up really liking like just these intense like sea blues on the edge of this yarn here. Um, really sold it for me, but yeah, I am not looking forward to working with it. Runaway Needle Red said it looks like Caron Latte. Yeah, it's maybe worse than Latte. Maybe not. I've seen Latte in the stores. I haven't actually worked with it, but yeah, it's it's gonna be rough. Um, it's not going to frog well. I can already tell you. This is not for a beginner pattern, or not. It's not for a beginner crocheter. Um, this might be the kind of yarn that you want to hold two together so that you can see your stitches. So what you can do is if you just get like a real plain, like in the case of this color, I would probably pick a light gray, and you hold it along with the light gray, and you work them at the same time. That way, you can see your stitches as you work. Um, that sometimes helps if you're a beginner and you haven't worked with a super fuzzy yarn like this. Otherwise, you really just work with it by feel. So you just stick your crochet hook where you're pretty sure the stitches are at, and just go with it. I always try and work yarns like this in patterns where you're working into chain spaces. So if you do like a V stitch, which is like a double crochet, chain two, double crochet, on the next row you work into the space between the V. That makes working with yarns like this so much better. If you're primarily working into chain spaces rather than into actual stitches. So those are the best I can offer you. I haven't actually worked with this. Real quick, some stats. This is a number 7 jumbo weight yarn. It is 100 grams, 76 yards. It's 100% acrylic. They recommend a US 17, which is a 13 millimeter knitting needle, or a Q19 hook, which is a 15 millimeter crochet hook. 15 millimeter, I think, is the largest crochet hook I own from Clover. I do own a 25 millimeter crochet hook that I really, really try not to pull out. Michelle says it looks like wool that hasn't been spun yet. It does. In the ball, certainly looks like it needs to still be spun. As you pull it out, it's, I mean, like I said, it's really, really beautiful colors. All of the colorways were very, very intensely colored. But yeah, it's not going to be fun to work with, and I have no idea what it's going to like turn into, because it's going to have no stitch definition. So you really shouldn't try and work something that you want to see the pattern. It's also, it feels like long-haired acrylic. So those of you who have worked with Red Heart Boutique Unforgettable or the roving that I showed before, long acrylic, you just think of what a long-haired teddy bear feels like. That's basically what it feels like. It's soft, but there's that element of like squeakiness that long thin plastic has. Like you can almost feel like the static of the fibers clinging to each other. But yeah, it feels a bit like a long-haired teddy bear or like the hair on a Barbie doll that's been brushed too many times. Um, it's soft, but you know that it's not gonna feel like you don't really want it clinging to you. So,
Joyce asked what you were going to make out of the fluffy
um, Joyce asked what I'm gonna make out of this. I don't know yet, honestly. I don't think it'll be a pretty hat. I probably will go cowl. Um, I think he'll just look like a Muppet if you make a hat out of this. It's probably going to be something for a kid. Runaway Needle Red said cowl. I think we went to a black screen, or at least my thing went black. Not sure. Might just be my feed. Michelle's suggesting just unworked that it could just be a pretty decor item. Um, yeah, I could just take the label off and put it out as a decoration. Um, I don't know if it would work as like a pillow or I wonder how it would look as a blanket edging. It would be really crazy looking, but it might look really cool on the edge of a fleece blanket. Like almost like a monster along the edge. Like I said it would be okay. So yeah, I don't know why we went to a black screen, but the switcher just um decided to do that. So um yeah, I'm actually thinking I might try blanket edging and see how it looks. A really like cool kids patterned blanket. I'm looking um can you climb in and hand me that horse fleece right there? I don't know if it'll knock everything over. Yeah. Thank you. So like this fleece with this on the edge might actually be kind of cool. So it's got all of the same colors. There's a little bit of accent orange horse in here, but this is the color dolphin. But it's got this teal and gray and white and sort of a real dark gray, and this blanket sort of goes with it. But I don't know. This might actually make kind of an interesting blanket edge. Um, Otherwise, yeah, I think cowl is probably the way. They recommend 3 balls for a scarf. Um, but like a full-length scarf, not a cowl. But yeah, I don't know here what I want to do with it actually, but it is pretty. I also sort of wonder what it would look like as a pom-pom. Like it might just be a nice looking pom-pom if you wrap it really really tight and then cut it. Um yeah, I it might end up being kind of a cool pom pom. So that's also an option. Um yeah. All right. So I finally got through all of the yarn that I bought. Last thing I wanted to show you guys was this. So I got this for Christmas. This is a circular knitting machine. For those of you who have seen like loom knitting, this is basically just an automated version. Not really automated, but like crank style version of a circular loom. It has a fixed number of needles, so you can't change how many stitches are in each round. But you just turn it and just crank through. I've used it a little bit, but my husband has actually taken a real liking to it, and so he's been just cranking out objects out of yarn that I've got around. And I was gonna pull a few of those out. I don't have the hat that I was wearing earlier. I don't know. It probably in my purse, which is right here. Not in my purse. I don't know. Might be in the truck. So anyway, this is a hat made off of this loom. This is Yarn Bee Urban Chic, I think. Yeah, he said he's literally been cranking out hats. He can make a hat on this thing. So this is double thick. So I'll show you how this works up. You start the whole thing up, you crank for, I think he's been doing 140 rows, and you get basically a long tube, and then you can pull the ends tight. And then you take it and you turn it so that you tuck it and put the two ends together, stitch them together, and you end up with a hat. So this is two ends. Here's the tube. So it's double this length, and then it's extra long. I only like hats cuffed. You would make it shorter if you wanted to wear it uncuffed. But yeah, so this is Yarn Bee Urban Chic, and this is Yarn Bee Dazzling, and these are just circular machine knit hats. They're not like crazy intense. They don't have cool patterns, but it's really a kind of a fun way to really make something quickly. If you have extra yarn, it seems like it's really easy to stripe. But sort of what I wanted to ask you guys is, if I were not to go exclusively to circular knitting by any means, but if I could get reviews out quicker, would you be interested in seeing just some... I'll back up a little bit. One of the things that slows me down in reviewing yarns is I like to have worked with the yarn in some way, and I like to have some sort of object that I can show off. And what we've noticed is that reviewers who just use circular knitting get a lot of negative comments on not showing a real project. Because it's not handmade, it's machine made. So if occasionally I were to machine knit up a hat and you could see how the colorway worked up, we could get a feel for how it works. Maybe I could crochet up a little square, and it meant that we were getting videos out to you quicker. Would that be of interest, or would you guys rather see fully worked up crochet projects, which means that videos come out slower? So that's sort of the question I wanted to ask you guys, plus I wanted to show off some of these yarns. Dazzling is actually really, really cool. I am working on a scarf right now so that we can do, we can review Dazzling fully. Urban Chic, this is a colorway that I picked out for my sister. They're colors that she definitely likes. They're not my favorite. It definitely comes in cooler colors than this, but she really likes these neon like pinks and oranges. So and then this is, did we decide this is this a Woolies cake or a mandala with wool? Okay, so this is Woolies cakes, and I think it's exactly the same yarn as mandala with wool. As far as I can tell, they're exactly the same weight. They have the same yardage. They're the same weight, like the same mass. They're 150 gram balls. But this is the whole cake worked up. This whole thing took, 40 minutes? And that really was just because your hand got tired, of turning the crank. Hats are taking you, 15 to 20 minutes to do the knitting portion, and then sewing takes probably another 10 minutes to sew in the ends and sew them together. So, I think it shows off how the colors transition. It gives us a good idea of how the yarns work. I can tell if a yarn is going to be splitty just by handling it. but it would also allow me to get some wash testing done so I can throw it in the wash machine, see how it holds up. I don't want to make it feel like we'd be cheapening the channel or something by not having fully worked up crochet projects. And I'm not suggesting that we're going to stop working up crochet projects. I just mean that we could get potentially some yarn reviews out a little bit quicker if we mixed in some machine knitting. So I just was curious what you guys all thought of that. Runaway Needle Red said Addie seems to be the leader in crank machines. What model did we get? We have a Centro machine. It is all plastic. I think the Addie machines have some metal, maybe. I think all the needles are still plastic. This is the Centro 48 needle, my husband's saying. You'll notice, let me see. So right there, you should be able to see that this needle is white. All of the rest of the needles, as they pop up, there's the white needle, and then all the rest are pink. So the white needle allows you to be able to count your rows and know where you're at in the row. So like as you crank through, a full turn is when you get back to the white one. There's also a little stitch counter over here on the side that every time the white needle passes, it increments by 1. It's really easy to thread. You just go back and forth as you crank. It's really slow for like the first round. You do the first couple rows, and then you can just crank as fast as your arm will turn. The only thing it really makes well is tubes. So you can make a hat or you can make a scarf. It can also do flat panels. We haven't really done much with the flat panels, and the one that we did had a dropped stitch on the end and didn't work perfectly. But I think with some practice, it can also make flat panels. But those flat panels are also a fixed width. So it is a little bit limiting because it's 48 needles and that's it. Like it's 48 needles, no options. You can just do a flat panel or a tube. But you can get different size machines with different numbers of needles. So you can get a machine if you want to make just a bunch of baby hats, because that makes you happy to donate baby hats. You can just buy a smaller one. I think you can get a 22 needle. And that should make a baby hat, like super easy. You can also, like, different yarns are slightly different sizes when they're done working up. So if you work a little bit finer yarn, it collapses a little bit more. But yeah, I picked up a Red Heart knitting machine with only like 22 or 24 needles at Goodwill, and it was terrible. So bad. It barely cranks. I think I might have shown it on a video, but this one you will see, like, I can just turn and it just moves right along. It moves this nicely, even with yarn running through it. Runaway Needle Red's asking worsted or sock weight. It seems to do DK and worsted weight, so 3 and 4 really well. We accidentally used a fingering weight, and it basically just made a fishnet. The spacing is just too far apart. It would be like working up, if you think of it in crochet terms, it would be like working up a fingering weight yarn with a eye hook. Like it's intended for DK and worsted or 3 and 4 weight yarns. So, it's in the pile somewhere here. So one of the other things that we did find, and we're just learning to experiment here, is that my husband knit this hat. It's a single layer hat. This is Premier Bloom, which I've shown on stream before. It's a yarn that has big sections of solid color and then these little variegated portions that are supposed to look like flowers when they're worked up. They look much more flowery on stream than they do in person. Like, they look like little pixelated flowers on stream. They just look weird in person, but I'm glad they look nice. But one of the things that we're trying to do is we learned to do a little bit of a cast off, and you can crochet an edge onto the end there. The problem that we've run into, though, is that we've got these big holes here. You'll notice that we're moving the camera around so that we've got that capability now added in after Christmas, too. So hopefully things stay more on screen. But yeah, so it's got these big holes. So it looks really nice if this is flipped up. Because then you don't see the big holes because they're backed by the rest of the hat. But it also then covers this bloom portion here. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this hat. It's a little bit too... So I think Bloom a 3-weight yarn? I think Bloom is a DK weight yarn. And so if I put this on my own head, what ends up happening is that it stretches out and there's too much air space, or too much like gap in the yarn, and you see my hair all through it. So, it's a little bit too airy for this level of knit. But if I just put it on somebody with a smaller head, I think it will be just fine. So, yeah. So you can do a little bit of mixed crochet and knitting with this. If you're actually a knitter, you can cast off of the knitting machine onto actual needles. And I don't know how to do it, but I'm sure there's YouTube videos showing how to cast off onto needles. And then you can knit additional rows or do a special bind off or whatever you want to do. So if you're doing like a sleeve on a sweater, you could do a particular cast on so that you could pick your stitches back up. You could do the whole length of the sleeve, and then you could pick up your stitches and do your shaping on your knitting needles. And you could just skip the whole section where you actually have to knit like 500 rows of sleeve. So, I had one of these off and it was pretty close to fitting comfortably as a sleeve, when it came off, but we've now tightened the top up. So anyway, that's my circular knitting machine that I got for Christmas, and I've been able to kind of crank through some yarns, literally and figuratively. And so we might be able to do some reviews a little bit quicker if we mix in a little bit of this.
Did you tell them the scarf was meant to be a hat?
Yeah. So the scarf was intended to be a hat, and we didn't really know how long to go, and then by the time we were really paying attention and looked it up, it was like way too far into the scarf to stop and turn it into a hat. One of the things that I don't know how to do with this machine, or might not even be possible with this machine, is to frog, or in knitting I think they call it tinking, which is Tink, which is knit backwards. I don't think you can unknit a circular knit and then still be able to cast off unless you know what you're doing. Because I certainly don't know how to do it. But this is a whole ball of mandala yarn knit into a tube. But it makes for a pretty nice scarf. I think I have a second ball of this. I think I'm going to add like a tassel on each end, because the gathered ends look a little funky just as the end of a scarf. So, but I think if there was a tassel or something that they gathered and then there was something to look at, might look a little nicer. Yeah. Let me move some hats here. I'm gonna move so you can see the texture here a little bit nicer. But it's just the little V's that are typical of knitting. The back side is all, you can't really see the back side. Oh, you can see it on the back side of this. The back side is all pearls. So, because I think that makes it stockinette stitch, which is all knits. I could be wrong about that, but it's just knit all the way in the round. So, um, it looks very nice, just clean knitting. Stitches are all very even, at least to my eye. But yeah, so I don't know. It definitely shows off the colorway here for the Mandala yarn. You can see the color transitions. So what they did here is they've got the purple, and then they've tried to make like a purpley blue section, and then it fades into the like really bright blue. The really bright blue fades into a blue gray, which then fades into this real gray that goes into a darker gray transition, really dark gray purple, deeper purple into sort of a magenta. The magenta fades into like a blue purple, and then into blue. So they tried to make it fade. What it really ends up being is more like color blocks, but they gave it a go in fading the colors. If this was worked into a big shawl, you could see that it definitely would be nicer color transitions than just hard stops in between the colors. So your main colors here are definitely the purple, the bright blue, gray, gray purple, magenta, and then like a sleet blue, with small blocks of transition colors. So it gives you some idea of how the ball will work up and what projects it would be better for. It would definitely be better for a big shawl, so that these transition colors were actually able to do their work. When you knit in just such a really small space, they end up being blocks of color and don't transition very well. So, but it's still pretty scarf. And like I said, I'm going to add tassels to it, and I think it'll end up being pretty wearable. So, like I said, it looks a little weird with these gathered ends. So that's the only thing I don't like about it. But other than that, it worked up really nice. Pretty nice feeling yarn too. So, Shalene's joining. Welcome. Happy New Year's Eve. Let's see. New Day Crochet is back. Must have got their phone charged a little bit. Joyce left and said Happy New Year. Let's see. Yeah. I think that's really all I've got to show off. We were gonna maybe pull the computer out. I don't know what time it is. How long? Oh, it is already 10?
There's 20 people watching, so.
Okay. Well, I'll pull out my computer and we'll flip over to some of the end of the year stuff that I wanted to talk about. Wake my computer up a little bit. All right. So one of the things that I was looking at on Ravelry is that you can sort patterns by the year that they were created, or published anyway. And so I've done that. I'll show you how you can do that yourself. I'm going to clear this out. We'll just go to the home page here. So from the pattern page, you can hit view all categories and then search all patterns. And then over here, there's a select from all filters. And if you drop that down and go to the very last one, it says year published, and you'll get a pop-up box right here. And you can just scroll all the way to the bottom and choose 2019. Close that up. And now it's showing me all of the knitting patterns for some reason in 2019. We got rid of that filter. I want to see just crochet patterns. So these are all of the crochet patterns released in 2019, and they are being sorted by most popular. We could sort them by publication date. So this is the most recent pattern published. And if you actually click on it, you can see it was published today. So, that's the most recent one. If we look, we can sort them by the highest rating. So you can see all of the patterns that had the highest rating. But I'm going to go with the most popular. And what I thought was really interesting is I was looking at the most popular page and I recognized almost none of these patterns, which I thought was pretty weird because I spend a lot of time on the internet looking at crochet patterns. And I recognized almost none of them. So the single most popular pattern I've literally never seen before. So that is this Phoenix blanket by Hooked on Sunshine. 1,600 people made it this year. It was published on August 2nd. So since August, 1,600 people have made this blanket, which I found astonishing that 1,600 people were able to make a blanket since August. But yeah, it's pretty strange that I've never even seen this pattern before. So, just sort of a year end, I thought like, oh, I'll recognize most of the big patterns from the year, and not even that a little bit. I don't recognize most of these designers, so Marley Bird, obviously, Anna D is one that I really like, but the rest of these designers I don't actually even recognize. This pattern I do recognize. This is a yarn that I really like. This is the Red Heart Roll With It Melange yarn being shown here. I'm almost positive they're saying Super Saver Ombre, but I'm positive that this is Roll With It Melange. It's not the same hat. So this is a really nice one, but actually this yarn has a pattern that goes so well with it. I'm gonna have to look in my library because I don't actually remember what that yarn is called, or what that pattern's called. Should be on this page. Okay. It's not the Macy beanie. It must be on the next page. Hold on one second. Here it is. Spiral Herringbone by Crochet by Jennifer. This one was released in September this year. And it is really one of the best examples of a pattern and a yarn that just go amazingly together. And I wish I had the other hat to show you, but this is the hat that I made out of the, I don't know. My husband made a circular knit version of this hat, and I don't know where it went. I wore it earlier today. It could be in with our shopping from earlier. I have no idea where it went. But this pattern makes this yarn just look absolutely gorgeous. And you can see, like, the designer's got a whole bunch. I'll show you. Like, you can see it just looks really nice with this yarn. And then we machine knit it, and it was just, like, okay. Not, like, stunning like some of these hats are. So, it really goes to show you that sometimes a yarn and a pattern just really meet and work together so well. Michelle K is saying, do you think people are paying to have their patterns bumped, like buying followers on other social media? So Ravelry, as far as I can tell, is only using projects, likes, and reviews to factor into that thing. So if you look, so on this one, there's 1,600 projects listed, which means people are posting this blanket, working it up. So I'm not sure which factor, if it's all based on projects, if it's based on likes. There used to be a spot where you could tell how many people had like favorited it. 100, like this is got 126 projects, which is not very many compared to that first one. I'm trying to figure out. So somebody asked if they think people are buying their way onto a best page. And I said, I think Ravelry is using the ratings and the projects and probably the favorites. So there's a spot where you can hit it, like save it in favorites. I thought there was a way that you could look up and see how many times it had been favorited, but I'm not seeing it. Maybe if I actually click on it? No, it just shows me that I've favorited it. But anyway, this one's got 126 projects. So I think Ravelry is only using their own metrics. I don't think like Instagram or Facebook likes or followers or anything factor into these ratings. So if it's actually projects worked up, it's 308 projects. It's actually projects worked up or pictures or ratings. I don't know what kind of algorithm they use to do this.
Why don't you do most projects?
Yeah, we could see if that's an option. Most favorites is an option. Most projects. So it looks like it's very closely aligned to most projects. Because, like, this is the first one. Well, I have it on most projects, but it was also most popular. Like, now I'm sorting by most popular. Now I'm sorting by most projects. They're basically all the same, like, top 10 patterns are all... Yeah, I have it only set to crochet projects right now. Just because that makes it a little easier to look at. Also, because I don't knit, I wouldn't have recognized any knitting patterns. But, so yeah. It's not just most projects or most favorites, though you'll notice most favorites is this Phoenix. Most projects is the Phoenix blanket. Most popular is the Phoenix blanket. The highest rating, Phoenix blanket disappears. So it's not based solely on rating, certainly. So they must have some sort of algorithm that weights all of these metrics in some fashion to give us most popular. You can also sort by hot right now, which are projects that people are looking at like currently. So Baby Yoda keeps coming up a million times. There's like 1,000 of them on here. So even in the hot right now, that Phoenix shows up down here at the bottom. Those are super cute. Look at, these are teeny tiny earrings. Very, very tiny. They're made out of quilting thread. Very, very little. Anyway. This was really fun because like I said, I expected to come here and be like, oh, I've seen this 1,000 times. Of course, it's the most popular of the year. And that I recognize like 3 patterns total. So, just some really, really beautiful things. This sweater is really stunning, especially for a crochet sweater. Looks knit from just the picture. Beautiful, intricate snowflakes. I think I showed this on a previous live stream, but it's really, really just gorgeous snowflakes here. But what did you guys work on this year? What do you think was the best project that you worked on for the year, or what you guys thought was the most popular project you kept seeing everyone post? This Dottie cowl I think is absolutely gorgeous. I need to make this. It just turns out so pretty with the reversible pattern. It just looks so simple from the outside, but it's just gorgeous. Really, really pretty colors. I wouldn't probably have ever paired like an oatmeal yarn with this bright blue purple, but really, really looks nice there. So, let's see. More Baby Yoda. More intricate snowflakes. I wouldn't have expected so many snowflakes. And they're probably being pushed up a little bit because of because of Christmas projects. Baby Yoda ornament, more shawls, ponchos, blankets. Like I said, surprisingly little of this is stuff that I've seen throughout the year. So either I need to find more people to follow on Instagram and Facebook, or I'm following the wrong people. I don't know. But yeah, I've seen very little of this. I really like Spin a Yarn. She's got these sort of flat stuffed animals. They're sort of a dual layer, almost like a pillow. Um, where you just make two flat things and seam them together and stuff them. It's just a very different look, but yeah, just really interesting. She's got a lot of Harry Potter characters and little animals and stuff that I really like. So there are some just absolutely stunning projects. Shalene's saying there's some pretty projects in here. There are really, this is kind of a fun way to go through and look at what's been done this year. There's that spiral herringbone pattern that I had pointed out on page 3. The other thing that I found really interesting is that there were 35,000 crochet patterns published this year. Which just seems like an astronomically huge pattern, or an astronomically huge number of patterns for a single year. But in crochet, 35,000. What about knitting? Knitting was 43,000. So we could look real quick and see what the so one of the things that's interesting here is that, so we're sorting by most popular, crochet or knitting, and you can see that the Phoenix blanket gets bumped way down the list. Everything ahead of this is all knitting projects. So I don't know if that means knitting is still more popular, because obviously the patterns are getting released in pretty equal measure. Though I guess knitting's still 25% more patterns, but certainly more people are working up knit items. Or at least, yeah, I mean, this one was released in March, and 3,700 people, almost 3,800 people have done projects out of this pattern alone. So that's a lot of knitting going on. Yeah. So I don't know. Runaway Needle Red said, I love purple iguana shawls. I have... Not sure... Was there a purple iguana? Ah, purple iguana is a designer. 62 designs. I hate when it puts me in this view. I want to see all of their patterns. Purple iguana. Search these designs. Okay. So these are purple iguana shawls that Runaway Needle Red was saying. I've seen this one. I really like this one. I actually made a similar pattern. Not exactly the same as this, but this spirally cowl type of look. But yeah, very nice looking, color changing. Looks like a lot of mandala cakes being used in these. So this is definitely Lion Brand mandala. This one certainly is as well. I bet all of these here are all mandala cakes. So really nice when you can get the yarn and have know exactly how the pattern's going to turn out, because the designer used almost the entire ball. So and it looks like they blocked them at least a little bit, because they look pretty open and nice, or they're using a gigantic hook. But yeah, so these do look nice. I can pull out a few. Somebody asked about some projects that I'm working on. Oh, I found the hat finally. It's in the bag over here. So we were talking about how I don't want that to die, but set that off to the side. So how a yarn and a pattern can really just like work so well together. So this is just a plain circular knit hat out of a yarn. These are not the same colorway, but they are the same yarn with the same types of colorways, meaning that the colors should change and transition similarly. But you can see this hat just worked so that the pattern pooled really beautifully. And you can see the spirals worked through here just really stand out and look very nice. And by comparison, this hat looks fine, but it looks nothing like this hat. You would never expect that these are the same type of yarn. And really, this yarn looks so much chunkier on this hat. This one looks so flat and just clean, I guess. They really don't even look like they're the same yarn, but I'm really impressed with how well this pattern shows off this yarn and how it just really sort of falls flat a little bit in this. That being said, I really like this hat. It just doesn't like, I don't know. It's not meant, like this pattern is fine, but it's not meant for this yarn. This pattern really is meant to go with this yarn so much. So, this, just as a reminder, is Red Heart Roll With It Melange. So, somebody asked what I was working on. This is one of the things I'm working on. And actually I'm done working on it. It's just, I need to sew in my ends. This is a Yarn Bee yarn called Color Play. I think it sort of looks like ribbon candy. But it's just kind of a pretty, two-tone yarn. So one is white all the way through, and the other is sort of a color-changing stripe along with it. They've got a couple different colorways. This one's called Weekender. There was one called Sea Spray. It was very pretty. It was blues and teals and greens. It was pretty cool. What else am I working on? Oh, I've got this. I don't remember what this yarn was called. It's a mercerized cotton from Plymouth Yarns that I unboxed. It's something with a P. Pens. I don't remember. I don't have the ball down here with me, but really, really pretty yarn. I really like the way that this looks. It just has such a like professional finish to it. And it hasn't been blocked and it isn't done, but it's still something about mercerized cotton just looks so shiny and like it's a real product. So, this is a cowl that is meant to, I picked it up, sorry. Meant to wear like this, and it gets a button and it just kind of lays nicely. So it's a little bit like a shawl and a little bit like a cowl, but just sort of basically like a collar. So, again, I just need to sew a button on and sew my ends in and block this. This definitely needs to be blocked. It's got these little fans on the end here that all need to be blocked so that they lay nicely, and when that swirls around that they stay laying nicely. So that's really about all I've got to show tonight. Let's see. Michelle said, would love to see you pick up your doily project in the new year and see how that kind of project works up. Yeah, I've got a few different projects that I've got working out of cotton, so I can move those sort of up the list if people are interested in seeing the crochet cotton projects. Runaway Needle Red, sometimes the yarn and the design complement each other. And sometimes it's a complete miss. I agree completely. Yeah. Sometimes you'll see and generally a designer will do a good job of or at least a good designer will really choose a yarn that complements the design that they were going with. But again, if you get into some of those project pages, you'll see examples of yarns that really don't complement well. They might look perfectly fine. The person who made the project might love it, and that's all that matters. But you can see that like the yarn and the project are just not married together. They just don't work. Um so yeah, I agree 100% there. It a lot of times a yarn and a project really have to meet and really work together well. Um this yarn actually goes really well with this project, and um I've been pretty happy with how it turned out. So I'm gonna get a review together. This is not a like super popular yarn. I don't expect the review to be super successful because I don't think a lot of people will be searching for it. But I think this is a yarn worth looking into a little bit because it's pretty cool. Michelle said it looks professional because I do great work. Well, thank you very much. But I think uh, the work is good, but the finish on the yarn I think is what's really making it like pop to me. So the mercerization makes cotton shiny, and it has a look about it that just looks really high quality. The last project that I can think of that really looked professional to me, that like 100% because of the yarn, was the little rag doll that I made out of the sheep's yarn. That just looked like something you could go into like a high end boutique and purchase because it just had this look about it that was just really high quality. Um, Runaway Needle Red said cotton works up nicely but takes forever because of the small hook. Um, Small yarn equal love the colors because otherwise it won't get done. Yeah. I think the doily project that was mentioned is a project that I was working. I've got a couple different ones. I've got a really bright, like swirly doily that I've started on that needs the other half finished. But I've got one that I really like to get done, and it's a wall hanging that's a couple of flowers and some big fronds of like fern leaf things. And I'd really like to get that one done because it gets mounted on the wall and I think it's going to look really cool. But yeah, it's all done in white crochet thread. It's all very tiny stitches. And it's a really intricate little pattern, and it it needs some real focus and attention, and I can get 3 cowls this done in the same time I can get like 2 petals on one flower done out of the crochet cotton. And so unless I've just got hours and hours to devote to it, it just gets put on the back burner. So even something like this took me 2 nights to work up. Where in 2 nights I can't even get one flower done for that wall hanging because it's just such tiny work with such an intricate pattern. So thread work does take a lot of focus and a lot of time devoted to it. So, but doesn't mean it's not worth it. Turns out really cool. So, all right. Well, I think that's really all I've got to talk about, unless anyone's got anything major that they want to talk about before the end of the year. We'll probably wrap up for the evening and celebrate a little bit, and I'll probably stay up till midnight, but other than that, we don't have any major plans for New Year's Day, and then I've been off, which has been nice, but I go back to work on Thursday after the New Year. So it'll be back to business as usual. We'll be trying to get some videos out and definitely live streaming on Tuesdays at 8 Central Time. And again, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Experiments in Crafting. I try and post when we're live streaming or when we've put up new videos, but I also am available by direct message on either of those. You can always leave comments on any of my YouTube videos, and I'll try and respond to you there, but direct messages get my attention usually a little bit faster. But yeah, other than that, thank you for joining me on New Year's Eve. Hopefully it was a fun stream. We got to look at a whole lot of new yarns, take a look at some really pretty patterns throughout the year, even if I didn't recognize almost any of them. And showed you guys a few other things that I got for Christmas, so hopefully that was interesting. You guys have a very happy new year, and thank you for joining me. Have a good night.